What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the final round brought to you from the opening pair. We've got an absolute bumper live show for you tonight, covering all the recent heavyweight action. Absolutely massive amount of stuff to get through. Unfortunately, as you can see, my usual partner in crime, Chris, is not available, but not to worry. We've brought in the wonderful Claudio to break it all down, give us thoughts, and help me just get through all of this. So, Claude, how are you?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on the show. Like I mentioned to you, it's actually my first boxing podcast, although I've loved boxing for many years now. So it's actually good just to have a roundup of the big heavyweight clashes, which has actually happened. I'm actually really looking forward to this one. So, yeah, thank you again.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Great. Thanks for stepping in. And yeah, look, as you said, you've been a fan of boxing for quite some time. We've actually both had a lot of discussion back and forth in the recent weeks, and we've just had so much to look forward to have viewed already. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting, even in the next couple of months, I think, with all the fallout of what's happened recently.
Yeah, definitely. I think. See, with COVID over the past year, the sort of boxing scene has been pretty quiet, but you've seen over the recent months now it's picked up, and it's such a sort of good feeling just to see crowds back in arenas again, the big heavyweight clashes happening, and we've had some real entertainment, just to say the least. Like the boxing the heavyweight division in itself is exciting again, because I think sort of a few years ago when AJ was coming up in the scene, obviously Tyson Fury wasn't around so much. Klitschko brothers are dominating a while back. So, yeah, it's a really good time to be a boxing fan in general. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting involved with this.
Yeah, it truly is. It really is an exciting time to be a boxing fan, no matter where you're from. So, look, yeah, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to break down both of the fights. We're going to firstly touch on the Joshua Usyk epic battle, and then we'll jump into Fury Wilder 3. We'll also have a few questions in. There's a few totting up there in the corner, which is fantastic to see, and we'll give our thoughts on what we want to see in the future and sort of the headlines at the moment. But look, let's jump into this massive fight between Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk. And I'm sure, as you've seen, when myself and Chris were doing our preview show to this fight, we were both extremely wary of the capabilities that Usyk brought to the table. And unfortunately, I suppose, from our point of view, as we're fans of Anthony Joshua, that those fears were brought to reality.
Yeah, I think with Usyk, we kind of knew what to expect from him in a way. We know the experience he holds. I don't know the sort of total amount of amateur fights he's had, but I know there's a lot of amateur fights previously to his professional career as well, which helps massively. But in terms of Joshua's performance, I was quite surprised, in all honesty, purely because we've seen sort of Usyk step up to heavyweight. We know what his strengths are. We know he's a very good boxer. He's very good technically. He can move around the ring very quick. You sort of see him in build up to fights where he's in his dancing, and he sort of just likes to sort of keep doing that, doesn't he? Because he likes to move around the ring and make life difficult for the opponent. And I think when we watched Usyk versus Chisora, we saw Chisora sort of very sort of put on, make life difficult for Usyk in terms of making himself big around the ring, putting on sort of making sure that he was known to be that heavyweight out of two. And he made life sort of very difficult for Usyk, although Usyk did come out on top. And I thought it would be similar with Joshua in terms of imposing himself as a bigger person and sort of being more of a physical presence in the ring. I feel like Joshua was there just sort of matching him at his own game, which is probably the worst thing he could have done against Usyk, because out of the two, Usyk can outbox Joshua.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, in terms of the fight itself, I was surprised from Joshua's performance. I thought maybe after a few rounds, they were sort of easing into it. The first few rounds, normally boxers do sort of, you get into the ring, you kind of work yourself out. The first few rounds are a bit edgy and then you sort of get into it. But Joshua never really got into the fight. I think that's more credit to Usyk because of sort of his game plan, and he executed it so well. But I thought sort of round 4, round 5, going further into the rounds, maybe Joshua's corner could say something, to sort of switch up the game plan slightly and say, impose yourself more on Usyk or use your power, which you've got. But it just never seemed to happen with Joshua. And I think that's a surprising thing, because when we saw Joshua versus Ruiz, I think that was kind of different because Joshua didn't look the same that night. Whereas I don't think there was actually any excuses from Joshua apart from he was outclassed, but also in the ring and outside the ring in terms of the corners, they technically outclassed him again. So yeah, it was very surprising for me.
Yeah, you've raised a lot of good points there, and I think one of the things that really stood out for me was, and you mentioned it, that it seemed as though Anthony tried to nearly prove a point that I'm not just a heavyweight with power, I can actually box. And he spoke in the build-up as well about how he played a lot of chess and that kind of thing. And one thing I noticed with Usyk is that he's a very, very unusual character. You know, he's very eccentric, and he. It seemed to me as if he actually got under the skin of Anthony Joshua. That even Eddie Hearn said in the build-up that, you know, he was very, very worried about this I suppose dark horse because you know he as you say he's only recently moved up to heavyweight, and you know he has that unbelievable amateur background, undisputed cruiserweight champion as well.
Yeah.
Now only the third cruiserweight to move up and win belts at heavyweight. So yeah, you'd have to kind of wonder what mindset was Anthony Joshua in. Obviously had one eye on the big Fury unification bout as well. There was a lot of talk about that in the build-up, and actually that originally was supposed to be the fight, and Usyk just wouldn't step aside. So you know there was a lot going through Anthony Joshua's mind. But look, let's not make an excuse either. Unfortunately, he was completely out skilled on the night. He was even hurt. He was hurt early enough. He wobbled, didn't he? And you know,
I think his face at the end as well. Painted the picture. He was battered and bruised at the end. So Absolutely. it wasn't just a boxing masterclass. Usyk was hurting him. Obviously, not enough to take AJ down, but at the same time, Usyk definitely hit AJ more than enough times to hurt him. So yeah, he deserves. I said after the fight, it was a Usyk masterclass, and it truly was.
It was. Yeah, it truly was. It showed everything that he had to offer, and you know, like I seen. I think Frank Warren brought up the point there earlier today that he was hoping that Joshua would step aside. That he's going chasing that rematch with Usyk already, and I obviously look, he's a promoter on Tyson Fury's end, so he's going to want to promote the biggest unification fight he can, but. You do have to kind of question, and I'll put the question to you: how does Anthony Joshua come back, and is there a way that Anthony Joshua can come back and get redemption once again?
It's probably the toughest point of his career, I'd say now, in terms of you know, his comeback now, because the Ruiz fight, that was a massive shock. I'd say obviously the biggest one. Sort of throughout Joshua's professional career in terms of the loss, because with Usyk, I think most people did expect Joshua to win. However, no one should have underestimated Usyk. Anyone who did obviously hasn't watched him. But Joshua came back from the Ruiz fight, and he actually kind of showed his boxing abilities during the rematch of the Ruiz fight. He was just sort of standing back, jabbing, sort of just basically having a professional performance. So I don't know if that sort of performance made him want to go into a Usyk fight with a similar thoughts. But I think when you see the best of Joshua is when he uses his power. We've seen him knock out so many people in the past, and I just think that power he's got, the strength he's got, he should. It just makes you question why he didn't use that more. I don't know if something maybe possibly went wrong in the camp. But like I said, I think there's a lot of questions for his corner as well. Like I know we sort of touched on it previously in terms of round 5 or round 6, sort of changing the game plan a little bit, imposing himself more. You only have to look at the Chisora fight, like we said on Usyk, where he did struggle. He struggled more in the Chisora fight than the Joshua fight. So, in terms of the rematch, I do believe Joshua he should win the rematch still, in my opinion. I'm not underestimating Usyk. I think he's an unbelievable boxer, and I think in the heavyweight division he will cause a lot of boxers problem. But I just think Joshua's game plan, I think in the 12 rounds he should still beat Usyk. But Yeah, I might be made to look silly come
Yeah,
the rematch, because I think they've already sort of arranged it for springtime next year
it
already.
is. Yeah, it's early spring or so. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do think AJ will come back and beat Usyk. If he doesn't, um, then yeah, it's sort of big questions, not just for Joshua but also Eddie Hearn, because that's his like golden boy.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there to be thinking about. You know, even as you said, from a business point of view, like
yeah,
you know, you could probably list on one hand the amount of fighters that are selling out stadiums, like football stadiums, properly selling them out. There's not many. Canelo, you know, Joshua, Fury. You know, there's not the list. The list isn't very long.
don't forget the Froch Wembley one, because he'll never let us forget that.
Oh yeah, that famous clip of him telling Floyd Mayweather how he sold out Wembley, and it's like, oh, that's great, yeah. But yeah, you know, there's an awful lot to take into consideration, and I think another thing as well that's very interesting with the rematch is, where does the fight actually take place? I don't think that, as good a promoter as Eddie Hearn is, and as big a draw as Anthony Joshua is, can they really demand that rematch to be in the UK?
I think, yeah. I mean, the thing is, and I think there is a lot of people, and I see a lot of hate for Joshua, but what he's done for the heavyweight division in recent years has been unbelievable, to be honest. See, in terms of the card itself now, Usyk has the belts, so there kind of has to be some sort of leeway for them to sort of come to a compromise for the fight. I think, regardless of the loss, Joshua still has a lot of popularity regardless. So, yeah, I think probably should be in England. Maybe that's just me being biased. I'd love a chance to go watch that myself personally, but yeah, I think Usyk. I mean, they've got the belts now, so I mean, in terms of promotion itself, we'll have to wait and see. But I'd still like to see it in England personally.
Yeah, it's you know, it's a tricky scenario for everyone involved, I suppose, because that money is probably there in somewhere like a Dubai or you know, Saudi Arabia. Yeah, as I've seen before, that draw of America, like AJ hasn't really cracked America yet. That disastrous performance against Ruiz, will he be willing to go there? You know, everyone kind of wants to have that one fight in Vegas at least.
I mean, the next fight is probably one of the biggest in Joshua's career now, because if he loses the rematch, what would be next for him? I think you'd have to be very clever in terms of what opponents he would have after Usyk if he was to lose. I don't even know if Dillian Whyte maybe would want another rematch, because Dillian Whyte's sort of looking at the belts himself now. He's looking at Tyson Fury or Usyk, possibly say.
Exactly.
And then when you sort of look below them, in terms of Joshua having to build up again, I mean, sort of the other heavyweights in that division, I'd say it's sort of like a core top 4 or 5 at the moment. And then sort of you look below that, and there's not really sort of heavyweight, you know, title contenders there. So yeah, it's such an interesting time for the division itself.
Yeah, and just looking at that question that Alfie has brought in there, we just briefly mentioned that Frank Warren sort of asked or made the statement that he thought that Anthony Joshua should step aside, but that's obviously not going to happen. And I don't think I think, to be fair to Joshua and Eddie Hearn and everyone involved, like, they have to get this defeat back straight away, because the longer it goes, I think the more damage it does to Joshua's reputation. And as well as that, I don't think Tyson Fury is going to be around for very much longer either. Like, I'm just looking at the ages of everyone involved. Like, Joshua's 31, Usyk is 34, Fury's 33, Wilder is 35. So, you know, these guys they're not spring chickens either.
Yeah, I think I was watching the Tyson Fury pod with Gary Neville, and I think he said he's mentioned something that he only wants 3 more fights left in him, I think. And he was sort of talking about his chances with Joshua, and he said the chances were slim in regards to him fighting Joshua, and that probably is even more slimmer now, purely because of what happened with Joshua and Usyk. Because when you look at the promotion side of things, Frank Warren will probably be wanting to maybe unify with Usyk down the line after Dillian Whyte fight. Then after the Usyk fight, what would Joshua be doing around there? So, and obviously Chris put in there Dillian White's 34, so you'd have to think how many fights does he have left in him, and the way Dillian White fights as well, and he gets involved in big scraps. Dillian White, so yeah, it's interesting.
Very good shout from Chris there. Also,
best of both worlds.
Yeah, could be the case. There was a question there from Chelsea on Broadway. It's a top question we've covered just very briefly there also, but and I think you actually raised the point yourself, Claude, about the change of tactics and change of corner. And we actually spoke about this off air during the week, and there was actually some alterations to Joshua's corner. I think after the first Ruiz fight, he brought in a couple of different guys, and as you say, he completely changed tactics, slimmed down for the second Ruiz one, and then came back to power again. And it was like as if he was sort of betwixt and between, probably a little bit of muddled thinking, you'd have to admit. And one thing that actually did worry me in the build-up was that Joshua gave an interview and he talked about how he went to the dark places in the camp, and I expected then for him to come out with that power and lay down a marker, and I think we have to kind of say it, he wasn't actually able to get close to Usyk to do that. And you know, in a rematch scenario, it's possibly going to be the very same thing. And I think even Usyk's corner and trainer was saying that wasn't the best performance that they put on. So that's a scary thought to think that, you know, this guy can actually get better at having put on a masterclass, as you said.
Yeah, I think with Usyk, we all know, like we mentioned at the start, his boxing ability is probably up there, one of the best in the heavyweight division. But in terms of the power itself, that's where he could possibly be caught out in the heavyweight division. But it's whether a boxer could potentially get there to give him the knockout blow. I mean, in the heavyweight division, it only takes one sort of jab or, you know, something, an uppercut maybe to knock him out. But yeah, I think the way Usyk sort of puts himself around the ring, basically sort of his footwork is joy to watch. So it's interesting time.
Yeah, it really is. I'm just reading that question from Chris there. You know, it's an interesting one with Dillian White, that he's been made to sit on the sideline for quite some time now, hasn't he? And he surely isn't going to just again, look, he has his own business to take care of with Otto Wallin very soon.
Yeah.
You know, how do you predict what the heavyweight division looks like in 18 months? I'm not sure. It could just it's obviously going to feature these few names. Joseph Parker's another one that could probably really complicate things as well. We've seen him in Tyson Fury's corner. We'll get into that fight. You know, we'll get into that fight in a moment or two. So yeah, like I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine with what's going to happen in 18 months. I think we've the next year at least lined up from what has taken place in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think we all know sort of in this division right now, in this era, Tyson Fury is the best. I think that goes without saying now. In terms of the sort of second best, I think Wilder's so dangerous still. And I actually wanted to give him more credit than what he deserves, because that fight on Saturday evening was unbelievable, just in terms of the strength he was showing. I mean, by sort of round 4, he looked like he had jelly legs already, and he was still continuing throughout every single round, and he was still trying to give it to Tyson Fury each and every single round. So we know what Wilder's strengths are in terms of his knockout blows. Probably got the hardest punch in the heavyweight division. Like, I can't believe, I don't know the exact stat itself, but the amount of knockouts he's had, it's incredible. But obviously, he just couldn't match Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury was a better man. I thought Tyson Fury won all three fights personally, even though in the first fight he was knocked down, and still Tyson Fury to win that. The second fight was just overpowering Wilder. He gave, I don't know how many excuses under the sun. And then the third fight, I think he sort of he changed trainer as well, didn't he? Malik Scott, I think, was in his corner now. And I actually heard Wilder's trainer sort of say after that, that was the first camp they've had together. I think Wilder was actually a lot better in that fight. in the third one, because like you could see the game plan from the off. He was jabbing him to the body, he was sort of stepping back, but every time he was jabbing him, Tyson Fury was stepping back at each and every single time, so he couldn't impose his power as much as he'd like to, which I think caused Wilder a problem. Then I think because he put on that amount of weight as well, by the sort of fourth and fifth round, that weight will come and sort of tire you out eventually, and he's not used to being at that weight. So I think give it another 2 fights or so, maybe Wilder may want to call out Tyson Fury again, but you just don't know. But I just think, I love to see Wilder against Dillian Whyte or something like that. You just know that would be unbelievable entertainment just for like a boxing fan in general. You just know. I think there'll probably be a knockout's more or less guaranteed. I think that's bankers. And that.
Absolutely. Honestly, I and that's it. We were going to jump into the Fury, the Fury Wilder 3 fight, and it was absolutely epic. I mean, honestly, it was worth getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and
I remember messaging you.
Only for you messaging me, I think I'd still be in bed now. But it was definitely worth the hangover feeling the next day, and like it has to be said that the build up to the fight, I was slightly concerned because the mind games and the lack of a face-off and arguing over gloves and just it was just all very, very petty. And we actually discussed it that we were a little bit concerned of an ambush, I think, from Wilder, that we just thought it was set up perfectly. That did Fury train as hard as he could have done? Obviously, physically. He is what he is, but it doesn't really seem to pay a tax on him.
Yeah.
But he talked about how he didn't respect Wilder's ability to box and these sort of things. And when you hear someone speak like that after having done everything he's done, you do sort of get worried. Like, has he cut corners in the camp? And is he ready?
Yeah, I think everyone was worried a little bit about Tyson Fury, not because of his camp, but also personal circumstances as well. I know his wife had a pregnancy. I don't think that went too well. I think he had to stay in hospital for a little time, and he had COVID as well. So I think that cut his camp shorter. So I think everyone was slightly worried. Like, was Tyson Fury actually ready for this fight? But boy, he just comes up every single time. I mean, you think for the first fight against Wilder, he's probably half the person he is now from his comeback. And then he changed trainers to Sugar. And I think that
Kronk gym.
And how well they've sort of come together. You think that's only their second fight together, isn't it?
It is,
in camp, and you sort of see he's put on a bit of weight against Tyson Fury, but Tyson Fury before the Wilder fight, it wasn't sort of well known for knocking out people as such. He's a great boxer, but against Wilder, he showed his power well and truly. So
he really did.
I think that's something Sugar probably focused a lot with Tyson Fury as well before the fight, because what strengths Wilder possesses. I think it's always scary getting a ring with Wilder just purely because that one punch can literally knock it. Well, it did actually, Tyson Fury in the first fight, and somehow he woke up from it. So
honestly, we're getting some brilliant comments in here, and keep them coming, guys. We're loving them. But it's actually so strange how Wilder has had that much success. Like, he's an Olympic bronze medalist, and to look at his basics of his footwork and his cardio management as well, it's just, you just wonder how has he gotten to where he got. And as we say, look, he has that otherworldly power. He knocked out Ortiz by hitting him in the forehead, and it was just like he lost every round of that fight and got it just one shot off. Boom, good night.
I remember that as well.
Stunning power.
Yeah, I think Ortiz actually rocked Wilder in that fight as well. And I think that's when there was a lot of talk about Joshua versus Wilder at that point. And Ortiz was a danger. I think we've seen Ortiz many times, the strengths he has as well.
Classy boxer.
Yeah, that was a very tough fight for Wilder. But when he came through that fight, I think everyone sort of taken Wilder very seriously at that point and thought, okay, and then wanted to see Joshua versus Wilder. But Tyson Fury thought, I'll step up and let's give it a go.
Yeah, so true, because there's that age-old question as well about the power puncher. Is, can he bring his power late into the fight? And he proved that night, against Ortiz. And what just stunned me as well was with Fury early in the fight. He just seemed to walk through shots as if it was, water off a duck's back, not about it. And the corner was really unhappy with Tyson as well. Like, you're not doing what we want you to do. Jab,
Yeah.
jab, jab. There's still a dangerous man. And then he drops Wilder, and it's like, oh my God, the power has just completely switched sides here in round 3. Then round 4, Wilder drops Fury twice. Looks like he's almost gotten the job done. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be an absolute huge upset.
Yeah.
And on we go.
Yeah, it's odd because I know when Fury got dropped twice, it wasn't like anything, obviously not compared to the the first, when Fury got dropped and he was basically sleeping for 5 seconds, but Fury just sort of got up and shaked it off instantly. Like,
yes.
I wasn't actually worried unless the round carried on for maybe 30 seconds longer or something like that, because I think the second time he dropped, there wasn't long left. But he sort of got up and he didn't actually look too phased himself. So, I just think for any heavyweight looking at Tyson Fury, you just think, how do you
beat him?
Tyson Fury? Because one of the strongest punches in the division, Deontay Wilder, couldn't actually keep him down. I don't know who else can.
Yeah, honestly, I think David brought up a great question there about Usyk and Fury, and I think the big issue is that Usyk has the skills to stay with Fury, I think, but the size and how Fury uses his size, the way that Tyson fought Wilder really is the way that AJ needs to fight Usyk in the rematch, and use that size, make him carry his weight. Let him know, I'm the bigger man here.
Yeah.
You're in my space now. You're in my weight class. I'm the king here. Fury versus Usyk is a technical masterclass as far as boxing skills would go, but I don't think that Fury. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
No, I just see Gags commenting there about replay of Wilder's first knockdown on Fury. You can see the shockwave go through his body, and I remember
you sent that to me. Yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah.
But I think in terms of the heavyweight division now, Tyson Fury obviously rules it. It's down to Joshua, Wilder, etc., to sort of come up, and then I still would love to see an AJ versus Fury fight. Purely for the British fans and entertainment. I think that.
I think any of those guys, AJ, Fury, Usyk, Parker, Wilder, anyone fighting anyone in that division, I think it's just it's an amazing, it's box office stuff.
Yeah. But
it's just there's so much to unpack from it. And another great question from Chelsea on Broadway here is the guys that next level below the Dubois and Joyces and stuff. Do we think they can jump up and get in the mix? It's hard to know, isn't
it? Dubois and Joyce. Joyce is a good boxer. Don't get me wrong, but I just hate watching him.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm more of a boxing fan than an analyst sort of.
Yes.
When it comes to sort of that type of thing, but Joe Joyce, probably sort of in the next few years, it could be his time to come up and fight against those top heavyweights. He definitely has the power. Joe Joyce is very robotic, though, isn't he?
He is.
Whereas, obviously, we saw Dubois against Joe Joyce, didn't we? I think that was 2020.
It was one of the lockdown fights.
We saw the damage to Dubois' eye that night as well, which wasn't good.
He sort of quit that night. He quit a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah.
Obviously, he'll get preserved the next time out, but he showed a little bit of quit in him, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think sometimes you've got to question sort of mentality in that aspect as well, but also those types of injuries for a boxer in the coming years, it can be tricky sometimes as well. So Dubois, I think, in terms of both of them, I think Joe Joyce obviously has a better chance. I don't know if he can be that top level heavyweight personally. When you sort of compare him to the likes of the heavyweights at the top at the moment. But there's still time for him, so I guess we'll see.
I think the resume of both guys just isn't quite there yet.
Yeah,
like I know that at heavyweight with power and stuff like that, you can be fast tracked up through the ranks quite easily. But I think that both those guys need to just perfect their craft a little bit more and build up their name as well. I guess we seen Dubois recently on one of those Thriller Jake Paul joke cards, and maybe that's the kind of exposure that he needs. He needs to just rebuild again from that little bit of a setback and sort of get into that elite level. But I think that the heavyweight division at the very top is a step beyond them just yet. But a great question here from Alfie as well about the rematch clauses and things like that. And I'm a little bit on the fence with that. Depending on the scenario, like I think in say the Joshua Ruiz situation, he took that fight on short notice through no fault of his own, really. So I believe that the rematch clause in those situations is justified. So much with the AJ Usyk scenario, personally, and I'm one of the biggest AJ fans that you'll ever meet, I'm not sure there's a need for a rematch, but I hope I'm wrong on that. But I think from what we've seen, there's levels to this game, and unfortunately, I think Usyk is a step or two above. But it's all part and parcel of that political side of boxing, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't like the rematch clause personally. I just think sometimes it can hold back from other fights potentially happening. I mean, it can work well for the boxer, like AJ with the Usyk scenario now. He wants to get his belts back so he can fight Usyk in spring. But then also with the Wilder and Fury fight, although it was exciting to watch Wilder versus Fury, when it came to the third fight, the build-up for me wasn't as good compared to the previous two times. Although the fight was entertaining, you'd still like to see other boxers in a ring with other opponents personally.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And funny enough as well, it was something we talked about, that on the weird scenario of the first fight being a draw. I think everyone kind of forgot about that if Wilder had actually won on Saturday, it technically would have been 1 win each, and we could have seen the fourth fight.
It would have been.
It's just, we're going around in a circle now. It's a 2-man division, and that's, I suppose, the other issue with so many different bodies of WBA, WBO, IBF, WBC. There's just so many chefs in the kitchen that eventually you're going to have these scenarios of just the same couple of guys squaring off back and forth. But I'll put the question, probably it's the million dollar question, but in your mind, in the next 18 months, do we see the heavyweight division being unified with one champion and one champion only?
I think there's too much politics in boxing for that to happen, unfortunately. The promotion companies, TV rights, money, we'd all love to see unified. I mean, I think now with Usyk holding the belts, there's a lot better chance. If it was still Joshua and Fury, I think there would have been a very slim chance. I think God knows how many times they've tried, and it just didn't happen. Whereas now you could potentially see Usyk versus Tyson Fury for unified championship. So I think there is more of a chance, but still, I just never like to get my hopes up in boxing because there's always barriers to overcome, and sometimes it's unfortunately all about money for the promoters. So
it really is. And as you say, you've raised a very good point there, that with the politics of boxing, we very rarely see these super fights. I think we had Mayweather Pacquiao a number of years ago, but it wasn't either guy at their very peak. And we've seen Mike Tyson and mine's gone blank. Lennox Lewis, sorry, Jesus, how did I forget his name? Tyson and Lennox Lewis, and again, it was probably not Tyson at his very, very best either. It was a version of him. So hopefully things work out. But my fear is that Dillian White's going to want his mandatory. Then we're going to see more shenanigans with the likes of Parker and other guys and Dubois and these different names jumping up all over the place. And as you say, we're going to get our hopes up so many times and then we'll be dashed. But the other thing. So go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say I really, really wouldn't mind seeing a Dillian White versus Tyson Fury fight. I think I think that'd be entertainment at its finest, personally. Just because we all know what Dillian White can bring when he goes into the boxing ring. we've seen many a times with Dillian White. Sometimes it can be too rash. Like against Povetkin, he had full control of that fight, and then look what happened. But I mean, I'm not saying Dillian White could beat Tyson Fury, but I just think purely for sort of entertainment purposes, 2 British boxers in a ring, I'd love to see that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see over the coming 18 months. I think it's so hard to predict what's going to happen over
it truly is.
the next year and a half. I just hope, obviously, everything stays okay, sort of with the COVID situation now, and the arenas can be filled up, and British boxing fans can enjoy it again as well, because that when AJ was fighting against Usyk, the first time in ages, sort of you've seen something in boxing in Britain again for ages. So it was good to see.
Yeah. That's exactly it. It was sort of boxing's big return to live, full events once again. We've seen it with the other sports; they've all had their day in the sun of fully back to normality, and that was really the first one. And that's actually an interesting point as well with the Fury fight, that there was no British fans there whatsoever, and it really the atmosphere suffered for it. There was no the away days, the weigh-ins were very underwhelming, and it's horrible to see it that although we're on the way out of this madness of the last 2 years or so, we're not completely back either. There is still that little thing in the background, and it's let's hope we have many more days out, because as we said with Tyson Fury as well, he's so unpredictable that he could, and I seen a statement today which worried me, that he kind of said, I've nothing really else left to do, I've done it all, and what's there left for me to conquer? And it almost seemed as if he was contemplating retirement, but we also know that from a mental health point of view, he loves to kind of stay in shape. And,
I'll never forget his entrance. I'll never forget his entrance.
Unbelievable. Yeah, the crown, walks the earth like a god for a few
I actually thought, this could be potentially a good fight here. Good. Just from the entrance.
I've seen better outside of Chippers after a night out.
Oh, good.
It was unfortunate, but hopefully that Tyson Fury hangs around and we do get to see these couple of dream fights, as it were, and finally an undisputed champion since Vladimir Klitschko, which is and I think even he didn't actually ever win that WBC. So was it Lennox Lewis?
Yeah, I think the Klitschko brothers held the title.
Long time. Yeah, they both. So they were never going to fight each other. So when is the last time we've seen an actual proper, genuine, completely unified world champion? It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Look, I think look, we've pretty much covered everything that's taken place over the last couple of weeks. We've sort of looked ahead to what we want to see as well. There's a huge amount of boxing coming up. Just as we are. Just one name I suppose that we didn't actually mention is that David Hay. God, we can't see another comeback from him, can we?
One last payday. No. Tony Belly absolutely obliterated him.
Yeah, absolutely, and just let's just leave it there. I know he's payday issues and things like that. Actually, a fantastic question on the way out there from David Branch. Lennox Lewis versus Prime Fury. Oh, I don't think I'm qualified enough to actually make a call on that.
I don't think I am either, but I'm still going to say Tyson Fury.
Really? Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's probably me being more biased, because I know Lennox Lewis is a great. And I've seen more of Tyson Fury. I'm not going to sort of deny that, but I think Tyson Fury is just one of a kind, honestly.
It really is, yeah. I think, it's so hard to know. I'm the same. I've seen highlight packages of Lennox Lewis, and I've seen, and you've read articles, that kind of thing, and it's always very difficult to judge one era from another and to sort of make those comparisons, but there is just something very, very special about Tyson Fury, that the way he rose up off the ground in that first fight against Wilder, and how he dealt with Vladimir Klitschko in his own backyard, and the mental health, all that sort of stuff. It's just, there's something X factor about the guy.
I think the Klitschko fight was just unbelievable to watch. That was. I'll never forget that ever. Watching it in my bedroom, and then he went all the way. It was in Ukraine, wasn't it? That fight?
It was in Germany. Yeah.
Germany. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got Andy Ruiz in the chat as well. Love it. Wow. We should ask him for an exclusive.
Honestly, God, yeah. Honestly, when is the big comeback? Where are you? But wow, bomb squad all the way, huh?
Yeah.
What a comment to round things all up. But look, as I said, look, we've covered everything off there.
Don't call it a comeback now.
Yeah, jump in. We'll send you the link. You can give us an exclusive. But no, look, we've covered absolutely everything I think tonight, and I think we've got lots to look forward to. We really do. Just before we do wrap up, look, we're a growing channel, as we always say, so please like, subscribe, share. The comments have been fantastic this evening. Really enjoyed all the questions and that kind of stuff, and it's really helping us along. Claudio, look, I'm really, really happy and delighted you could join in this evening. Really, really enjoyed our chat and can't wait to have you back on once again. But I'll leave the last word to you. Where do you want to see us go in 2022?
Sorry, 2022.
Cool. The year ahead. What's your dream fight, dream scenario?
Dream fight. It's got to be Tyson Fury versus AJ still for me. All British fight. Wembley sold out. I still love to see that. I mean, obviously, like we mentioned, it does depend on AJ's fight against Usyk next. But yeah, just want to say a big thank you for letting me jump on the podcast tonight. Do apologise if there's been any bad takes, as I said.
No, not at all.
It's my first boxing podcast, so I'm not pretending to be Mr. Know-it-all. But yeah, no, I do really appreciate it. And it's been a really good evening and a chat. And thank you a lot, mate.
Yeah, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think we're both two fans of the sport, and we're just going to give our own opinion, and that's what it's all about. Like, sport is opinion, and look, I really enjoyed it as well, and can't wait to have you back on once again, and we'll break down more exciting fights.